Today I want to share these slides that I prepared with you. I called it de-colonising urbanization. You are probably familiar with the idea of colonization and decolonization as well. But today the idea of decolonization and urbanization in this talk is going to be, somehow connected and discussed why we need to think about this term or concept. So, yeah, for a good start, I can go on with this beautiful image, this creative mind of some Homo sapiens that they are living in the mostly Western world, but unfortunately they are spread now all around the world and contain the majority of Homo sapiens of today. They lost their wisdom probably in a way that, they don't know that collectively they are suiciding, and they are also not only suiciding, because suicide is, in some countries, it becomes kind of recognized as a right as well, because it is your life, you can do whatever you want, but nobody accepts anyone kills the children. But what we are doing, we are killing children. We are killing lots of current and future children's with the lifestyle and with the way that we are living, and it's not acceptable at all. Nowadays there is a discussion in the US because after 73 years there is a woman who is going to be executed because she killed a pregnant mother and her baby. So I mean, it's a big discussion in the US media that how you can kill a baby future that is going to come. But when I look at her, and when I look at ourselves, when I look at many of governments, what's happening in the world, if that woman, I don't say what she did is good, or I don't judge that one, but I just want to compare. Probably killing millions of children is much worse than killing one children. And if she deserves death and execution, let's question who else deserves it. And yeah, this is the world we created, and I will tell you why we create this world and how we are creating this world. So this is the world. Yeah, this is all the side products of our lifestyle. We create huge pollution, destruction, and yeah, we create lots of global climate issues, lots of social challenges in the world that raises from poverty, which is also interrelated with desertification and climate issues, some radical groups, migrations, and all of these. But yeah, let's talk a little bit how this is happening. Actually, here you see two pictures side by side, and they're quite similar, yeah? Somehow, yeah. One of them is a cancer, and the other one is an urban environment. They're very, very beautiful both, as you can see from this image. Actually, there is no problem with cancer, but there is lots of problem with urbanization. So it's not, it's not a good comparison. But I just want to tell you how cancer emerged. You know, all of you, but just to remind you, evolution is something, we cannot say it is good or bad, but it's something natural, so we can accept, this is evolution. And evolution is because of some mutations. So if there is no mutation, there is no evolution. So that's also natural mutation. But the problem of mutation, so if we accept any kind of habitation, any bird who comes and settle on top of one tree, create a change on that tree. So it kind of creates some change on the branch, on the position of settling, bring some other sticks. So create a change, create wider its niches, let's say. And that can be, I mean, this second image from the left, top. So this is a mutation, which is acceptable, And then the problem emerges when this becomes a colonization, when 1,000 of the birds comes and settle on one tree. And then what happens? Because when the birds comes and settle on one tree, their manures are collected under the tree. And if the amount of manure is too much, because manure includes nitrogen, yeah. So if the amount of nitrogen will become too much, that the soil and the microbiome there and the other living beings that lives under the tree, and the amount of leaves that are collected under the tree, because we need carbon materials to have proper compostation there, compost. So what happens, when you have huge amount of nitrogen, it will become destructive. So if you have 1 bird, 10 bird, 50 bird, as much as, according to the size of the tree's ecosystem with what happens under the tree can tolerate the amount of nitrogen comes from the manures of the birds, there is no problem. But if the number raises to the number that, the toleration becomes impossible, that's the moment that the problem emerges. So if we go to the fourth one, now the issue is worse, because, these are the white ones are the vessels that this new colony of this mutated cancer cells guides or directed all the vessels, develops vessels, and starts to, sucking all the blood that goes to other cells as well. So what happens? Imagine 1,000 birds came, settled on top of this tree, and they developed a system to suck all the nutritions, all the water, all the air, all the sunlight, whatever that goes to all other trees in Coventry. So what happens? So those birds and their habitats grows while everywhere is dying. This is what's called cancer. So the reason that cancer becomes very dangerous for human being, every minute we have some cells in our body that are mutated. And that's not a problem because we can tolerate it. But when they become colonized, and when they develop some infrastructure in a way that they suck all the resources of the planet, in a way that it will become destructive for all the other living beings and all the other kind of human beings living in this planet, this is the moment that becomes dangerous. But I have a good news, that at the end, because of cancer, people are dying. So this is the good news, because when the person dies, the cancer cells also die. So this is the end of the story. I mean, if you continue sucking all the resources of the planet in a way that creates death for all the other living beings, all the other Homo sapiens living on this planet, the end of the story is clear. This is death for you as well. So, yeah, Homo sapiens is the name of our species, even though she is ashamed that we are called Homo sapiens, probably. And interestingly, we include a huge biodiversity, actually. So when we speak about Homo sapiens, this body, this Hussein that sits in front of you, contains only 43% of human cells, of all the cells that I carry, is not human cells, is not Homo sapiens cells. We call ourselves Homo sapiens, while Homo sapiens in our body is the minority, not majority. So, and when we look at the number of genes in our body, which are human genes or Homo sapiens genes, the number is even much less, much more less. So it is 1%. So we are 99% non-human and only 1% human. Luckily, imagine if we were more human, what was happening. So, I mean, the reason that I put these slides, I use these slides a lot because I want to just emphasize, even when we are talking about ourselves, we are talking about a kind of biodiversity. All these living beings that lives with us, or even lives with us is not a good, correct terminology, because they are not live with us, because what is us? What is I? So can I say that this 99% that contains my body is not me? Only that 1% is me? Isn't it very racist, very, fascist approach to say, I don't recognize the other 99%? No, I mean, it is not acceptable. So I have to say that, probably I have to correct myself and say that I am not a human being. I am not a Homo sapiens, but I am a biodiversity. I am a beautiful web of life, which variety of living beings establishes during millions of years, a kind of exchanges in a way that is beneficial for all of us and beneficial for the planet. And this is the way that life continues. And this is what I need to recognize. This is what I need to celebrate, appreciate. This is the way that my body works. So if I continuously, as I recognize only 1% of myself and continue to fight with all the other 99%, which is me and around me and is part of me and all of this, then I mean, I'm just killing myself, just again, let's return to the story of suicide and killing the others as well. So it is not different than occupying one of African countries in 18th century, 19th century, and kill all the locals because they're resisting to give their mines to Europeans. It's not different than that one. It is again another way of colonizing. So colonizing your body as recognizing yourself only as a human being is another way of colonizing your body. So we need to, as 21st century humans, we understand what does diversity means and how we have to do this diversity. Okay, what is me? The most stupid picture that I have ever seen about Homo sapiens is this one, that recognizes Homo sapiens as this guy with lots of muscles. I saw some of those people around the world. I had some even students. Now I don't have. I mean, some similars I have, but yeah, he is probably a man. This is not a woman's body, but however, let's keep this discussion for a future. This makes me very angry, but I mean, let's talk about the other Homo sapiens. Unfortunately, this also looks like a man, but however, this chemical structure of Homo sapiens, any human body, is actually, 75% is water. 75%. This water is very essential because I'm going to talk about this water. I think I'm going to talk about this water. 75%. 75% is not a very small part. And the other 18%, 1/5, carbon. So I think this water and carbon are very important. So until here, I am only carbon and water. So only this part is not carbon and water. But I just want to show you how carbon and water is created and is changed or transitioned or transformed in nature, in this planet. It is very interesting that, you know, we have something is called photosynthesis. And even though, because we learned it when we was very young, like a child, when we were, I don't know which age you learned photosynthesis, probably 5, 7, 8, 9, I don't know, yeah, I remember. But so it becomes, photosynthesis, okay, it's photosynthesis, because we learned it very early in our lives, so it is something simple. But it is a very deep discussion. But to make it very summary, we have on this planet only one source of energy, only one, and that's sun. There is not any other source of energy. And we have only one source, one way to receive this energy, to store it, to transform it, and to use it. There is not a second one, and that's photosynthesis. So we have one source of energy and one way of receiving this energy. So you can now, understand how photosynthesis is very important for us. If there is no photosynthesis, there is no energy, there is no life on the planet. So what is photosynthesis actually? The light and energy of the sun is stored as carbon, okay, basically. And then this carbon, which is stored in fruits, which is stored in the body of the tree, in the leaves, of plants, is observed and used by different animals. And as humans, we either eat plants or some animals who eat plants. So by this way, we can get this energy from these plants. And also, hello.
Hello, sorry, you're right.
That's okay. And also lots of other energies that we use today are coming from millions of years of storing and transforming the energy of the carbon that is stored in the body of these plants. So what happens actually is when this glucose and the carbon from the trees comes to any of the other living being cells to be used, it is broken. And then what's created there, here in this image, you can see it very easily, So in the photosynthesis, the sunlight and water comes in, yeah, and the carbon dioxide goes in, and it is turned to glucose and oxygen. And all these cells that the other living beings have use glucose and oxygen and break the molecules, and they create carbon dioxide and water. So carbon dioxide and water is used by photosynthesis to create glucose and oxygen, and all the other living beings use this glucose and oxygen to produce carbon dioxide and water. And by this way, the water molecules is broken here. The oxygen and hydrogen is separated. The hydrogen goes and collects with the carbon dioxide and creates glucose. And then the water again is emerged. Okay, so interestingly, I say this is the only in nature, but when we say something it is only, doesn't mean that's 100%, but it means 99.9999, yeah? This is the only way that the water molecules is broken in the nature. every moment in our life. So then I have this question here: how old am I? You know, so it is a big illusion that we think we are 20 years old, 30 years old, or like me, you know, we are 200 years old. When we say we, how old are we? You know, what is this I? What is this I that we are talking about? Because, yeah, if we are 75% water, it is a very interesting information that still on this planet we have waters that are not, their molecules are not broken in the last 100 million years. So some parts of what I carry is 100 million years old. 100 million years old. It's a huge time, a really big time. So that means some parts of my body now that is talking to you, in the last 100 million years, before the last extinction of dinosaurs, was on this planet. You know, when we see a stone from 19th century, we put it in a museum inside, you know, some boxes of glasses, you know, aquariums, and we respect, you know, we pray to it, you know, which is 100 years old, 200 years old. If you have a book from your grandparents, you know, the way that you respect to that historical, you know, object. Imagine parts of your body is coming from 100 million years ago and was probably part of dinosaurs before becoming part of you, or probably was, you know, used by dinosaurs or touched dinosaurs, and it is still here, you know. It contains some information from the past. And yeah, I think we need to be a little bit more respectful to all these things that we carry. But I mean, let's look at the cell size and answer this question. How old are we, you know? Yeah, if we are 99% non-humans, if 57% of our cells are not Homo sapiens cells, that means most of them are bacteria. The maximum lifetime for bacteria is 24 hours. The maximum. So it is between 12 minutes and 24 hours. It is more than 12 minutes that I'm talking to you, and many parts of my body died in these 12 minutes. So I am not anymore the first person who was addressing you. I'm someone else. So while I am 100 million years old, at the same time, I'm changing every second and every minute. Some parts of my body, some parts of my life is changing. Some new inhabitants, some new cells of mine, you know, is here now, that they are creating new ways of, you know, linking with the other ones and exchanging with the other ones, which is very, very appreciable. I'm not going to talk about that. So, okay, the third part of my talk is about urbanization and architecture. Why we talked about all of these? This is the way that, yeah, I'm seeing our urbanized world. So this guy is a very famous guy. I saw him a few times from the back because his back is better than his front, you know. So it is good to have his back, you know. So, and this is the city that he was there, you know, for many years. I hope he will go back there. He was less dangerous in New York City than when he is in Washington City. So I'm not sure we have to cut this part of my talk because you know, from the video, because you know, I'm not sure if we are permitted to talk about US elections in our modules or not. However, luckily we are in the UK, not in the US. Okay, so do you know what's taxidermy? Have you ever heard about taxidermy? Taxidermy is a word that is used for the bodies of animals that are emptied. These animals are killed, their bodies are emptied, and their, you know, covers, their, you know, what's that? Their, what's called? Skins, you know, are preserved. And then, like a sculpture, you know, they develop some structures, and then they develop some scenes to represent them. Okay, so if you go to Natural History Museum in London, this is one of the best ones in the world. You see them, lots of these animals, you know, killed 100 years ago or recently, and are preserved and exhibited there. So it is very interesting. I studied a few months on this issue of taxidermy. So I spent, a few months of my life on it, because it's not that much simple. I studied the history of this taxidermy. Why people were doing it? Yeah, traditionally, even Indian Americans, you know, Native Americans, the First Nations, what we call them, they were doing it. But I mean, they were not killing an animal to only represent them, but you know, there were some other reasons. And the way that they were doing, and that their approach was very different in not only the Indian Americans, but what was traditionally done as taxidermy. But in 19th century, 18th and 19th century, during the colonization time, that Western European colonizers, they tried to occupy all the lands around the world and show their powers and mine there, get golds from the Africa, from North America, from South America, from Asia, and brings them gold or copper or all the other, you know, valuable stones, to bring them to the UK. Oh, we cannot talk about UK. Okay, not to the UK, but to Belgium, you know, to all other, you know, industrial countries, to use them, and also to slave the people in that countries, because they needed people to work, and to bring them to their countries. At the same time, parallel to all of these, in these countries, they killed the wildlife and animals as well, and they brought back their skins to just exhibit them to the people who have never been in Africa, to see how animals of Africa is. And but it is not that much innocent, because you know, I read lots of articles how it's interrelated to a patriarchal system. This one, how it was part of a man-powered society, that, you know, man is powerful, man is doing it, so man must hunt, man, you know, must do that. And at the same time was related to the colonizing idea, that yes, we occupied Ghana and their animals are here now in New York City, you know. So this was also part of a victory of, you know, this is Ghana, we cannot swear, yeah. So you understand it, you know. We occupied it and we killed all their animals, and now, you know, they are here, you know. Look at the gorillas, they are coming from Kenya, look at these, you know. And this was the way, when any new animals were coming from Africa, you know, they were sending some groups to go and kill these and come and represent them, because it was part of their powers, you know, to show how strong our nation is, you know, we can kill animals in Africa and in India and can come and represent them here, you know. So yeah, I mean, it was not that much innocent, as I said. And in the opening ceremonies, usually the presidents of the country, you know, I did my research in the US, so usually the US president was part of it. And even now, when you go to the, one day, if you haven't been there, to the Natural History Museum in New York City, you will see that the statue of the president is in front of the Natural History Museum, because I mean, it was, yeah. So, however, why I interrelated to architecture? Because, you know, it is very similar. You see, you know, the way that we see today in urbanized world, the architecture is, we see only the skin. So we don't expect the building to become part of a living habitat, to join the planet's, you know, wonderful, beautiful exchange that it has. But we want something that looks like it is alive while it is dead, especially today with these all, okay, I have to calm down, with all these, you know, biophilic, you know, I don't know, mimic and whatever, you know, architecturals, you know, movements, that we try to make our buildings look like green, look like living, look like, you know, but, you know, at the end it is dead. It has no relations with anything, because the way that we use, have tap. The tap's water comes from those infrastructures that are completely the same as the vessels of the cancer cells that I saw in the beginning, because the water, I mean, speaking about New York City, I had a research about the water resource. In the last 100 years, New York City Council, they have municipality, they bought almost half of the lands of New York State. And all those water from those areas are collected with huge infrastructure and transferred to the city that people can drink it. Because New York City has the biggest water footprint per capita in the world. So people of New York City uses maximum amount of water every day. And because they have 8 million population, so this amount becomes huge amount. And this water comes from almost half of the state. So New York City, only for its water, sucking half of the state, which is probably as big as this country. And, you know, what produces? I mean, yeah, it is sucking the water, but what happens to that water? It goes to toilet, and it mixes with all the chemicals that we are using daily. And this is a huge pollution. And just recently, I was looking at the UK's numbers. I shared it with my students in the first year. In the UK, there is a guideline for the city councils. If the amount of rain in each city raises to a specific number, the city councils are allowed to open the sewage system to the rivers to prevent flood. And very interesting to know how many times every year this is happening. Can you guess? Give me a number. Twice? Good. 5. 500,000 times. 500,000 times. Every day, 1,500 times almost. In the system is released in the river.
So
in rivers.
So they actually allow that to happen?
Yeah, this is legal. This is legal. 500,000 times. And just for that reason, all the living beings in all the rivers in the UK are are not in a natural conditions. So you cannot eat any fish that is cut from any river in the UK, because the amount of nitrogen in the rivers are not healthy, and because of the amount of the microbes and different kind of microbes that emerge there, or, you know, are released there. And also because unfortunately, many of us, we are not only eating and drinking natural, fruits and, natural foods. So unfortunately, we use lots of medicines. And these medicines are very dangerous chemical, formulas. These formulas, what happens? I mean, why we use medicine, any medicine, any painkiller or any other, medicine that you believe it is innocent, vitamin or whatever, it contains huge chemical structures. I mean, the size of the molecules also, and also when you imagine 65 million or 70 million in the country are using and releasing every day to the rivers, what happens? The same effect that this, small medicine is doing on your body, you can imagine what can it does on the rivers for the fishes and all the other living beings in the rivers, and also goes to the seas. So I saw a study in the US how it affects the farming actually, because these river waters are going to the farms and are used to water the other, however. So yeah, I mean, the issue is, I don't want to go to the details. There are lots of details, but yeah, I mean, I will post, I have an article on this topic of this taxidermy and urbanization, and I actually explain the history of New York City. The first settlers or the main settlers of New York City were these beavers, and the way that they were settling, they were creating their habitats. I didn't want to tell it, but I have to tell it. Okay, I have 10 more minutes to talk, and then I will stop. I promise I will stop. So yeah, these beavers were great, animals. I mean, all the animals are great, but beavers are great because I know them, because I studied them. So the symbol of New York City is beaver. And the symbol of this New York State is beaver as well. Because we, Homo sapiens, and not only the weird we, the weird European, Western, educated, urbanized Homo sapiens, but also in collaboration with Indian Americans, we killed all the beavers. And for the last 400 years, there were no beaver living in New York City. So it is very interesting. So they are not extincted from the planet, but extincted from the state. So these guys were living in the forests of New York City, in the forests of Manhattan. And the way that they are inhabiting is very interesting. They cut some trees and they create some dams, yeah? And they live there, but the dam is not completely closing the water movement or water flow as human dams are doing, but it reduces its speed. Yeah, so it lets some parts of the water moves from in between, accumulated on that dams. And then what happens? Because the water that comes from the mountains with speed, it washes all the best topsoil of the mountains and brings it to the city. And because the structure that these beavers are creating is reducing the speed, so the best soil that comes from top parts of the state, the mountains, are coming, and when the water is becoming slower, is the soil, the topsoil is synced there. So it releases the topsoil, and it filtered the water actually. Yeah. So what happens after a few months, or I don't remember the amount of the time, but maybe a few months, this dam is broken at the end, so cannot sustain forever. And then water continues moving. But until that time, some plants grows on that topsoil, which is very fertile. And those roots keep those soils there, doesn't let it go. And then, so beaver comes there, cut few trees and create these dams. But when the beaver must leave because the dam is broken and he must go and create them somewhere else, that part of the forest is reforested in more intense way because it has better soil and better structure, better ecosystem there. So the beaver comes, creates some, harms to that environment. What it is in the short period of time, you see, oh, it's the beavers are cutting the trees, Oh, what happens? But when they leave, which they are leaving, their footprint is absolutely positive. And during the time, the relation between beavers of Manhattan and the forests of Manhattan is in a way that scientists today are discussing, could Manhattan become this much forested area without bears? So bears and the forest are the same, part of each other, the same cycle. So this is beavers. Then I looked at how Indian Americans were living in these forests before Europeans arrived. And it was very similar, very interestingly similar. So these guys, these First Nations, they were living in any land that they go. And so what they were doing, basically, they were, the Europeans wrote in their books that they were firing the forest to create some free areas for themselves. But when I looked at the Indian Americans' notes, it was not written that way. It was much poetic way. So they were saying that they present some smoke to the forest, as they do for any guest. When you go to their tents, they present you a smoke, yeah, a good smoke, not fake ones, yeah. They present a good smoke, and then after having that smoke, I mean, no, we are not talking about that part. So yeah, in the forest, they say that, to appreciate it, because it is Mother Nature, we present the smoke, and the forest gives us the land, okay? And then they build their houses, which are, it's a very long issue. Hopefully one day we will talk only about these housing and the way that they were living, because there are lots of things to learn from them, I think. And then they live maximum 15 years in an area, maximum. So not one generation, this is their rules. Because, when we look at that time and their lifestyle, one generation is, now it becomes something like 25, 30 years. But in that period, it was something like 15 years, one generation. So it is absolutely important for them that in less than one generation, you move to a new land. Because it was absolutely important that all generations learn how to build their habitats from the zero. And they knew that if continue living in the same land and sucking all the blood of that land, after a while they cannot find fertile soil around themselves. And if they don't let the nature to recover itself and regenerate itself, so the future generations, 100 years later, they will die, because they will not have enough good food or sacred food, and their, seeds of their sacred seeds of their ancestors will not grow, and all of these. So they moved to new areas to let the land to recover. They could observe it. What is the result of what they are doing in a long period of time, even though their life was shortened than us, and they didn't have microscopes, they didn't have universities, but they could observe it because they were not ignorant. But what we are, we have all of these, but we cannot see that. We lost the wisdom. We know it, but we don't understand it. We know all of these. Everything that I told today is not new, you know. So I don't think that you learned anything from me, because this is not my job to teach you anything. But I just wanted to remind you some of these issues. So yeah, this is a wonderful image created by a group led by Sanderson. This is the Manhattan, how it was and how it is. So let me translate you how it was. We talked about how it was. Let's talk about how it is. You know, it is sucking the blood of the planet, this city, this structure. It is not, you know, if only, I don't know how many days, but, you know, it needs a kind of another research for it. I didn't see any research on it, but you can imagine if you decide, if something happens and you cannot transfer food to this city, how many days people can survive? I have actually some statistics, but I don't remember. I think it is 1 or 2% of the food that is used in the city is produced in the city. Even if you don't look at the food, you look at anything, you know. The metro lines, they call it underground or subway, you know, they call it subway. So the trains, the cars, the whatever that is there, you know, the work that they are doing, what they are doing, you know, what is the product of this? You know, they trade money actually, mainly. This is what's happening in that city, mainly. And what it is called art and culture industry, it is an industry, you know. So the produce of this art and culture industry is not creating us, making us really that much. I mean, what's happening in I mean, economically, I'm talking. I respect some of the artists that live in there, but I mean, some of those. So I don't know, you know, and the city is, you know, you can see how people are suffering in the city. So only 100,000 children are living in the street. You cannot see that poverty in any poor countries in the world that you can see in New York City. The 700,000 people have malnutrition. 700,000 people, 10% of the population has malnutrition. And the other 90% also they are eating garbage. That's another issue. But even this I mean, what we think that it is beautiful because of the media, you know, is pumping to our eyes, and when we look at it, such a beautiful city, you know. Actually, it is garbage. I mean, it's not at all beautiful. I think, you know, it is really ugly, and you know, and it is like looking at cancer. Somebody is dying, and you look at its cancer, you know, cells, or the photo of the cancer from MRI, or you know, or one of these machines, and you say, how beautiful cells, you know. You know, how beautiful. Look at the colors, red and yellow. Oh my goodness, you know. So this is the same aesthetics. It is sucking the blood of the planet and all of ours blood probably. So many of the things that we are buying, the final money is going to New York City, you know. Any shopping that you are doing from Amazon, you know, you buy yourself something very innocent, but the money goes to New York City, you know. This is the way that this structure is, you know, can sustain. Because like what we call that, oh, I forgot that word. Oh, sorry. What are the name of these dead bodies that they moves and suck people's blood, you know? Zombie. Yeah. This is zombie. Yeah. This is really zombie. It can only live with sucking the living people's blood. This is called zombie. Very, very good word for that. And yeah, do we want to continue with these zombies? Is there any other way? Do we want to appreciate all these zombies, all these buildings that are sucking the planets and the other living beings, other children's blood, and creating huge poverty in the world? The wealth is coming from creating poverty in the world in much worse way that it was in 19th century, 18th century. In 18th century, ships were deporting from Liverpool or Bristol and going to Africa and killing some of the children and women, you know, and bringing some of the children and younger men and women to the UK to work here as slaves. And when we look at from today to that image, you know, we hate, you know, this is the only feeling that we have. But the way that we are living is much worse. And the way that the effect of this lifestyle and this urbanization and the way that we are organizing these cities only and only under this, I mean, it becomes quite impossible now to choose other way of living, because if you don't have money, you will die. And unfortunately, you know, we have to voluntarily join to feed and water this system that is sucking our blood, you know. So, yeah, I know that I talked a lot, but I will talk only 10 more minutes. Sebastian, what is your idea? May I talk 10 more minutes?
Well, I promised everyone to talk about chickens, so it's about time we talked about chickens, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so let's change the topic.
I'm happy to continue.
I promise I will stop. Usually it is difficult.
Smiles and then some masks, which I can't tell what the. I mean, yeah.
Okay.
So.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
That's mainly me, but yeah. Okay.
Okay. I will try to finish it in 10 minutes.
No,
Promise. This time I promise. Okay. So this is a very beautiful picture. One of the subproducts of urbanization. 70% of all the birds living in this planet now, 70%. 70% of all the birds living on this planet are domesticated plants, are chickens mostly today. And just yesterday, I read an article that only because of this, we are going to suffer from global pandemics every year with a new virus. Only because of the amount of chickens lives on this planet. It is not at all natural to have one species dominated this even I mean yeah, 100% of the humans are living on this planet are Homo sapiens, but you cannot find any others. You know, we could kill all the other humans and extinct them, but yeah, chickens are probably in the second. Yeah. So, however, I mean, when we look at this farm factory, you know, what it is called, it is very interesting. Chickens are put in a cage, in a very small cage. And some people, they are very good people, very nice, you know. So they serve them, you know, they bring them food every day. There are some pipes, you know, you see them here, so they can get water inside in front of their houses, you know, beautiful houses. And even their governments are better than ours, so they don't need to pay for their houses, so it is free, you know. It's more communist system there, probably. It's a more social democratic, you know, maybe Scandinavian, you know, farms here. So they have foods in front of them every day. The best food that makes them fat, you know, and feel, you know, full, and the best water. You know, everything is clean, everything is wonderful. If you go to the forest, you know, they might, you know, have some viruses infected or whatever, but they have not NHS. What is that? You know, a good health system. It's not national, but FHS, Farms Health System. You know, they bring them medicines, and because it is very difficult for the farmers to understand which chicken is sick, they give the same medicine to all the chickens. So they put it in their waters, so all of them drink. So no matter if they are sick or not, you know, we will come to that point soon. That you know, they will get tired of, you know, giving us one by one medicine. So they will. So I mean, it is somehow in coronavirus it is happening. There's something similar, but they treat the same for everyone. But yeah, I mean, you see, I mean, it's a wonderful system. Free health service, free water, free, you know, food, wonderful. And what it is asked only these chickens to do is just to share their eggs, and but they don't need actually, because, you know, like us urbanized people, we don't want to have 12 children anymore. You know, the life without children is much easier. So let's you know, for the chicken also is the same. You know, they don't want to produce more next generation because there is no need. I mean, human is taking care of them. You know, so they don't need to. I mean, they are enough. You know, 70% of the world's birds. So they don't need to create more. And machines are doing it. It is very tiring for a chicken to sit on an egg for 21 days. You know, 21 days, usually they don't eat. And even they don't release their manures because, you know, they must not stand up from the eggs, you know. So it is a very tiring and very difficult time, the pregnancy, you know, the incubation, that's, you know, what we can call. So, I mean, it's much comfortable, it's much better. I can talk a lot about the comfort that these chickens have, you know, but let's see how we can have this luxury, you know. So this is first issue. Why they didn't have this luxury in 16th century? Do you have any idea? No. But luxury, I mean, how they can have this luxury? That the food comes to them, water comes to them, you know, medicine comes to them, you know. Yeah, the main reason is fossil fuels. Yeah, because the food that these chicken are eating are coming from Brazil and China, mainly. All the chicken farms in the world almost eats parts of Brazil and parts of China. You know which parts of Brazil? You can guess. Amazon, yeah. Because the government lets small corporates to go and cut the trees in Amazon and turn that fertile soil in Amazon that was there for millions of years, to turn it to a farm and grow soybean to be given to these chickens. And but half this soybean comes from Brazil to the UK, to Coventry, with fossil fuel that belongs to the next generations. We are going to use all of it and finish it. So the next generation will die. Who cares, you know? So yeah, this is this urbanized chicken, you know, city, you know. You see, they have urban infrastructure, water, healthcare system. They don't have education yet because it's not necessary, because they are not revolutionary, you know. So if they were revolutionary, they could have schools as well to teach them how to behave and to not to not rebel against the system. But yeah, because their mind is small, they don't need to do that. They do it for the animals in the zoo. They teach them how to behave and not kill their, you know, protectors, or, you know, whatever. So there are lots of similarities I listed here between this system and urban system, but because I'm supposed to finish it in 10 minutes, you know, I cannot read and discuss all of them. But another one is, which I wanted to say, is it's not resilient. The same as New York City, you know. If this guy I don't know his name, but I recognize this. If this guy does not come to this farm for one day, probably they all die. That's the same for us. If for how many days, if Tesco and Morrison's and Asda, if they close, how many days we can live? How many days? You know, we are going to kill each other. Really, you know. You saw some images from the US, from Australia, from UK, of pandemics, how people were fighting with each other because of toilet papers. So imagine if your children is hungry at home and you don't have anything to eat, what you do? Yeah, so this is our urban system, which is not resilient at all. It depends to that Tesco, you know, and Asda, and many of these, the owner is the same, you know. I just realized last week that Walmart, you know, the US Walmart was the owner of Asda. I didn't know that. So, I mean, that's the same person, you know, as owns everything. But, I mean, luckily, in the near future, Amazon is going to buy all of those. So we will have one person controlling everything in the world, you know. So, I mean, even though now it is only 10%, but yeah. So that's it. I mean, we are not much different than those. So, I mean, this is a very long story. I don't want to go to it. But, I mean, this is how the chicken lives in whatever. And, I mean, you know, we have a concept that's called pasture-raised chicken. So this is completely free-range chicken. So I mean, in some farms, I saw in Wales, some of these farms, you know, the chickens are free. You know, they go wherever they want and they eat whatever they want to eat. But the issue is with this one is we have some pasture-raised humans as well, you know, living in rural areas. Usually the rich people now, but I mean, it is very difficult to control chicken. You see that the other one, I said, you know, they give the same medicine to all chickens because, you know, they cannot recognize which chicken is ill, you know. It is very expensive to go and check one by one all the chickens, you know, when you have 100,000 chickens in the same city. So, but when it is like this, the chicken can move everywhere and can eat whatever he wants or she wants to eat, you know. So it becomes very difficult to control. So this one is more preferred by the power. I mean, this creates power. So this man is more powerful than the man that controls this chicken, because this man can control what the chicken eats, what the chicken drinks, what the chicken, you know, whatever does, you know. But this one even can have an egg and leave it somewhere else. You cannot find it, you know. So usually farms prefer the other one. Usually farms prefer the urban one, not the rural one. This is the rural chicken. They don't like it. So accordingly, many chickens in the world now, they are fighting to become liberated and, you know, to become a free range. And they don't know that no matter if you are a free range or you are a factory one, you know, you are going to be presented in Asda, you know, in this way, you know, which is 100% British. You know, it is, I mean, I find this 100% British term both, you know, very funny because it's not 100% British while eating, you know, Amazon's trees, Amazon's forests. It's not 100% British. But at the same time, I mean, when you advertise something as 100% British, that means that some layers of racism is, you know, in the deep part of, you know, if being 100% British is something very valuable, it is something problematic. Yeah. So I'm finishing my talk, hopefully in the next 10 minutes. So let's stop here. This is my last slide. I have lots of them, but okay. I will show you two more slides. So this is jungle fowl. I mean, chicken is not something natural. Chicken is creation of human being. It's completely domesticated, like dogs. There is no chicken in the world. There was never been any chicken in the world, but there were some family members, relatives of chicken in nature that they still lives. In Southeast Asia, like dogs, comes from wolves, and human being domesticated them. There were no dogs in the world, It's not natural. So for that reason, it is completely dependent to human being. That's the same for chicken. That's the same for many fruits, we domesticated them. They were not originally exist in the nature. So the closest relative to chickens is called jungle fowl, and lives in somewhere South Asia. We have some of them in India, some of them in Indonesia, and Thailand, kind. And these I looked at how many square meter of land they occupy, because this the pasture raised chicken is living in 10 square meter, or 100 square foot, but the jungle fowl is living in 10,000 square meter. And the reason is that in that 10,000 square meter is not only jungle fowl that is living, variety of animals, plants, insects, and microbes are living. So the jungle is not made for only chicken. The jungle is made for this web, this network, this balance, this harmony, this So this is the main problem. If you create something only for one species, you kill, you suck the life of the others, you suck everything. So this is the problem, probably. What we have to seek and what we have to fight for it is probably this diversity, not diversity of only life, but also diversity of human beings, diversity of human activities, diversity of whatever. Not all of us can survive working for this capitalist system and getting wage every month, until the time that they hire us. I had some friends, they studied very hard in the best universities and they became pilots. I had some of them in my Facebook, and they were every week they were sending a picture in their Facebook and Instagram from one of the most beautiful, what I call them, ugly structures, cities in the world. One day from New York, the other way from Chicago, the other way from Singapore. They're, with their pilot dress, drinking the most expensive wines in the world, And today I'm seeing their pictures in front of the parliament in Canada. It is real. I can show you my friend's picture, They're fighting for their wages because, they are fired because the flights are not, running. And, this is this much. And if you become the best person, there are lots of stories from New York City. The homeless people, they're living outside. A few months before, they had a very, very good salaries. They were receiving $100,000, more than $100,000. They are well-educated people. Just the company decided to fire them, and because of their lifestyle, they didn't have, and because their lifestyle is consumerist, so they were having a very expensive car leased. So every month they were paying $3,000 for a Porsche, to drive. Their house was rented, and it was, $5,000, $6,000, $10,000, paying for the rent money, and they were going to the pubs, very expensive pubs. So, they could not survive 3-4 months after they are fired, so they are in the street. That's it, So this is not resilient. This is not the most wise way of living. We have to change it. And this is an image that I created. It's a beautiful image, I think. Which part of our rainforest would you like to eat today? Yeah. So do you want to eat para or, Mato Grosso, which part of Amazon do you want to eat today, in your lunchtime? You can think about that. And this is the image of Amazon. You can see here, yeah, how beautiful is that? 1950, 2020. My child is 4 years old. So when my child is become a student in a university, I hope he will not choose to study in a university. But when he comes in that age, probably there will not be any Amazon. So when somebody talks about Amazon, he'll say, what? Ah, it's a river, yeah? It's a polluted river in South America? Yeah, I know. Dirty river in South America, yeah, I know. Yeah, I will finish with this image. These cages. This is in Hong Kong. Yeah, and these guys, do you have any idea how much they are paying for these caves? They rent it. It is $100. Yeah. Yeah. $100. And do you know the reason? Because renting a house in Hong Kong is very expensive. And if you want to commute, if you are a simple labor, you know, with a simple wage, and you want to commute every day, with that money that you're gaining, you can only rent a house 4 hours, three and a half hours far from Hong Kong. And there are some people, I also looked at that one as well. There are some people every day, they travel 7 hours, 3.5 hours to the work and 3.5 hours to return and to sleep. So there are some cities around Shanghai, around Hong Kong, that serve only as sleeping cities, you know. They come and sleep, and then at 4 a.m. in the morning, they return to their job. Their life, they don't have any family. They cannot have any family because they don't have any time. Their time is only working, traveling, sleeping. That's it. This is their life. And they live all their lives. But these guys are lucky ones that they don't need to use this life. They rent these caves. These you know where are these caves? Look at those. They are under the luxurious towers in the city center. So it is minus 10 floor under the ground. Yeah. Probably it's good to have some discussions. Sorry for a very long talk. I didn't talk about solutions, but this is you that you're going to find solutions. We don't hear you, Sebastian.
You have a solution?
Yeah, probably we need to create our own forests, you know, that the way that this jungle fall, the difference between jungle fall and that chickens in the farms is that the jungle fall reestablish its relation with the forest and lives with the forest together. Okay, Sebastian, can I ask for a favor from you? May I?
You can ask, yeah.
Okay, there is a letter written by Nemonte Nequimo, one of the indigenous leaders from Amazon. And it is published in Guardian. And it speaks about the solution. It's a very short letter, but just to create a different voice, would you mind to read this letter?
Okay, sure.
And there is no time for the discussion because I ate it all the time. I ate it. I sent the link.
Oh, you sent it to an email?
No, here in the chat.
Oh, in the chat. Okay, so I'm going to open it in the.
Thank you, Sebastian.
Thank you very much, Hussein.
Thank you.
We'll try and get some response. Oh, I closed both of them. Mm-hmm. Hey. It's this.
Oh, yeah, I can also share it and you can read from the screen.
No, it's okay. It's just my I had a. Do you want everybody to read it with me? Shall I read it out aloud?
I think that would be
Okay.
really.
Maybe everybody needs to close their eyes and concentrate.
Yeah, I shared the screen so you can see the text as well and the image of the lady.
Okay, so I'll read it from here. Okay. Can I request control?
Yes, please.
Okay. Let me see who this is from. So we indigenous people are fighting to save the Amazon, but the whole planet is in trouble because you do not respect it. I'm just going to read it from my my screen here.
Sebastian, I'm so sorry. Just a second. I will share your voice from the TV.
It's fine. I mean, I'll share my screen.
No. Just the voice, because it comes from my laptop and it's not loud enough.
Okay. Yeah, you need to.
Okay, it's now okay.
Yeah. Dear presidents of the 9 Amazonian countries and to all world leaders that share responsibility for the plundering of our rainforest. Turn off this. Is it coming through here as well? I guess. No. Okay. My name is Nimonte Nenkimo. I'm a Warani woman, a mother and a leader of my people. The Amazon rainforest is my home. I am writing you this letter because the fires are raging still, because the corporations are spilling oil in our rivers, because the miners are stealing gold, as they have been for 500 years, and leaving behind open pits and toxins. Because the land grabbers are cutting down primary forests so that the cattle can graze, plantations can be grown and the white man can eat. Because our elders are dying from coronavirus while you are planning your next moves to cut up our lands to stimulate an economy that has never benefited us. Because, as indigenous peoples, we are fighting to protect what we love, our way of life, our rivers, the animals, our forests, life on Earth, and it's time that you listen to us. In each of our many hundreds of different languages across the Amazon, we have a word for you, the outsider, the stranger. In my language, Wau Te Dedo, that word is Kawari. And it doesn't need to be a bad word, but you have made it so. For us, the word has come to mean, and in a terrible way, your society has come to represent the white man that knows too little for the power he wields and the damage he causes. You are probably not used to an indigenous woman calling you ignorant, and less so on a platform such as this. But for indigenous peoples, it is clear, the less you know about something, the less value it has to you, and the easier it is to destroy. And by easy, I mean guiltlessly, remorselessly, foolishly, even righteously. And this is exactly what you are doing to us, indigenous peoples, to our rainforest territories, and ultimately to our planet's climate. It took us thousands of years to get to know the Amazon rainforest, to understand her ways, her secrets, to learn how to survive and thrive with her. And for my people, the Waorani, we have only known you for 70 years. We were contacted in the 1950s by American evangelical missionaries. But we are fast learners, and you are not as complex as the rainforest. When you say that the oil companies have marvelous new technologies that can sip oil from beneath our lands like hummingbirds sip nectar from a flower, we know that you are lying, because we live downriver from the spills. When you say that the Amazon is not burning, we do not need satellite images to prove you wrong. We are choking on the smoke of the fruit orchards that our ancestors planted centuries ago. When you say that you are urgently looking for climate solutions, yet continue to build a world economy based on extraction and pollution, we know you are lying, because we are the closest to the land and the first to hear her cries. I never had the chance to go to university and become a doctor or a lawyer, a politician or a scientist. My elders are my teachers. The forest is my teacher. And I have learned enough, and I speak shoulder to shoulder with my indigenous brothers and sisters across the world, to know that you have lost your way and that you are in trouble. Though you don't fully understand it yet, and your trouble is a threat to every form of life on Earth. You forced your civilization upon us, and now look where we are: global pandemic, climate crisis, species extinction, and driving it all, widespread spiritual poverty. In all these years of taking from our lands, you have not had the courage or the curiosity or the respect to get to know us, to understand how we see and think and feel and what we know about life on this earth. I won't be able to teach you in this letter either. But what I can say is that it has to do with thousands and thousands of years of love for this forest, for this place. Love in the deepest sense as reverence. This forest has taught us how to walk lightly, and because we have listened, learned, and defended her, she has given us everything: water, clean air, nourishment, shelter, medicines, happiness, meaning. And you are taking all this away, not just from us, but from everyone on the planet. It is the early morning in the Amazon, just before first light, a time that is meant for us to share our dreams, our most potent thoughts. And so I say to all of you, the earth does not expect you to save her. She expects you to respect her. And we, as indigenous peoples, expect the same.
Wow.
That's it.